welcome back to the Leah Moses Entrepreneur Podcast. I know it's been 2 weeks, but we had our little, political season in Trinidad and Tobago, so I didn't want to have the message distorted in all the action that was taking place. But today, jumping right back on board with, business information, information about how you could be empowered, how you can be in business, be self-employed, self-sustaining. I want to get into some cryptocurrency. All right, and so, we have a lot of people across the world, speaking on cryptocurrency. And if you're not familiar with cryptocurrency, I'm not sure if the buzzword Bitcoin rings a bell, right? So today I just want to get in, as quickly as I can into a brief overview. Of course, I encourage you, no matter what is being said, I encourage you to use Google, search up the terms, search up the information so that you can get all the viewpoints, right, on the particular matter, so that you can make a decision all on your own, right? I'm just here to facilitate the thought process into whatever topic that may come across. So cryptocurrency came about through the first cryptocurrency, which was Bitcoin. And so basically, in summary, this was just digital currency. So I want you to think of, you may have played a game on your phone, or you may have, been a gamer, and you would have racked up credits, right? These digital things on your screen that would have allowed you to unlock certain levels, certain players, certain materials, certain inventory, certain weapons if you play that kind of game. This digital currency was there, and it worked for that system. So there's an anonymous person that goes by the name of Satoshi Nakamoto, if I get that correct, that created the Bitcoin. He is to this day an anonymous being. He is not known. The true owner of Bitcoin isn't known. But it started back in 2008, thereabouts. And he decided that, we need a financial way, a decentralized financial system that, one, allows people who can't get bank accounts to have accounts, right, currency accounts, without the hassle that the banks may give you to have an account in the first place. He also decided that, money should be able to go around the world or person to person conveniently without the set of fees. Because if we are familiar with Western Union, MoneyGram, these are local things. Even if you think of your payment processors, PayPal, etc., Stripe, they all have fees, right? And the fees are sometimes, to each his own, it's subjective, but it's sometimes exorbitant, right? Why should you have to pay so much money for a private individual to send you some funds privately, right? It's not a business, they're sending you funds, right? And we all know it. You might have family you want to send funds to internationally, and vice versa. They might have funds they want to send down to you in the Caribbean, right? And so we have those high fees to pay to these systems. And so that was part of the process. Of course, I'm not going through the exhaustive list of reasons, because then the podcast may not end, and I'm trying to keep your attention. So these were some of the challenges that they wanted to be solved, right? Some of the futuristic thinking, instead of walking around with fiat, aka paper money, that dollar, that those notes and coins in your purse and your wallet, he wanted to have a system, right? Technological system whereby you can go into a store that accepts the currency and basically scan a code. Now, more and more we have been seeing these codes to scan, even when you make appointments now in, let's say, the Ministry of, in licensing office, the place we go to register vehicles and deal with things concerning the vehicle. When you make an appointment, you print out your appointment, there's this kind of barcode on the paper to scan. And I guess, I haven't used it yet, but I guess when you get there, they may have the machine that they may be able to scan to ensure, or to pull up all your information. Companies have been using it, something called a QR code. Companies are using these things to just have you scan and get the information. In this case with cryptocurrency, the aim is when you scan, right? When the place is fully developed and widely accepting cryptocurrency, you basically will just have to scan your phone. You go by a cash register, you scan your phone with the device that they will have, the merchant have, and you can pay for your products and services. Cashless, a truly cashless society. And we know, like places like the United States, there are cryptocurrency ATMs, right? If you want to liquidate, because of course fiat, the aim is to replace fiat, but we know that wouldn't happen just like that, especially replacing the number one currency of the world, which is the US dollar. It may not disappear, overnight. So we still have, and then not every merchant or every service provider or salesperson accepts the Bitcoin. So we still have to often go back and forth between the fiat and the cryptocurrency. And of course, in terms of the Caribbean context, Trinidad and Tobago to be exact, the last time I checked, the only place that had up a sign accepting this cryptocurrency, aka Bitcoin, which often looks like an orange circle with a B in the middle, right, with two strokes on top of the B, like if it was to make a dollar sign. When you write that S and put two strokes through the S to show a dollar sign, right? They have two little strokes. It's not running through the B, but at the top at the bottom, in the orange circle representing Bitcoin. That's the sign for Bitcoin. If you ever go by Trotters on Maraval Road, you can see that sign on the door unless they have moved it, right? So that's the aim. That's some of the problems. I mean, the last time when I would have first been introduced to cryptocurrency about 3 years ago, the concept of it, and even then looking into Bitcoin, I would have realized that I think there were 4 million or 4 billion people, don't quote me on that, in the world that were unbanked. And let me tell you what's unbanked. We also face that problem here in the Caribbean. The problem we face here in the Caribbean is that if you don't have a job letter and a pay slip to indicate where your funds come from, you more than likely wouldn't get your bank account. Now, if you're young, like when we were in primary school, you would have been able to set up your children's savings plan. You might have gotten a bank account as a child because, they come around with that initiative to have you have this bank account, right? I remember FCB had the Neo account, which was for young people from small. I remember having my account signed up early by my late grandmother, and up until you reach 25 years old, that card was valid, right? Until then, and then after that you can, move on to the adult card, I call it, right, with that particular bank. And so I also remember in primary school, in primary school, right. We had Eastern Credit Union come around and have us start our credit union account with a $5, to encourage that savings, And so, beyond that, you really cannot get a bank account without a proof of income. So even if you're self-employed, you will probably have to have your actual business registration certificate, and I know I did a previous podcast about registering your business and the importance of doing that. So you'd have to have your business registration certificate to prove that, okay, this money is legitimately coming from this particular trade or this particular business or job or work that I do. For those who have taxi badge, the taxi badge acts in place of the job letter and the pay slip, and banks often view people with taxi badge and so on in a different light than an employee, in that you don't have to have that job letter, that pay slip. You basically have your taxi badge and they ask you for, a source of funds, which you can simply use your tariff or your fare sheet for your stand, your taxi stand or wherever you work, to prove, okay, these are the times that I work, these are the trips that I make, and each trip costs this amount. So they come up with an overall, idea of how much money you are expected to bring into the bank. This is all about following the rules of the system and laws, right? Yes, it may be strenuous to some, but that's just the law. And of course, we're trying as best as possible to follow that law. We don't want to be doing anything illegal or anything that's against, legal principles. So many people around the world, they can't be banked, right? And they have no system in which to pass their money through. And we know the problems with that. Yes, you can save your money under your mattress. You can save it in your garden. However, to get many things out of the financial sector, they want to see that trail. They want to see that money going through the bank to prove that, okay, yes, I see your constant, I see your money. Your money is coming through, because it's no longer relevant where, people just could write a letter and state, yes, I work at this place without your pay slip or without the money coming through the bank. Because unfortunately, a lot of people out there have created fake documents stating that they work somewhere, stating that this is their pay slip, but then you have no trace at the bank. How is the bank to know that you are genuine? And so they have to guard themselves, because the FIU and the central bank and so on have measures in place, protocols in place to avoid money laundering and terrorist financing and these things. So that being said, digital currency really was to bring that form of decentralized payment option, right? Because we have a central bank. Most countries have a central bank. And that's a centralized system where this bank gives the rules for the commercial banks, etc., right? In the decentralized system, there's no one body indicating anything. There's no one body that's able to just print out currency. Because the problem with that is, when you just have the ability to print currency, what happens? The value of the currency drops. So the more you just go into central bank and print TT dollars, Trinidad and Tobago dollars, is the value will just deplete. The value of something goes up the more people want it and use it. And we know the Trinidad and Tobago dollar isn't a main currency. It cannot be used anywhere else in the world, right? So if you keep printing money, you have a problem. The differentiator in the decentralized system and in cryptocurrency is that they supply a certain amount of billions of coins. Some may be millions, but Bitcoin, there's a certain amount of billions of coins made. There will be no more made, and there will be no more produced by the owner. It will have to circulate via activity, sales, buying and selling of products, right? You would be able to acquire it by either doing business and accepting it, or having your labor paid for in cryptocurrency. And so that is the market cap. That's all that's going to be ever circulated, right? So you can see now it's like land. There's a certain amount of space in a country. You can't get extra land beyond what it has, right? And so the ones who want to benefit from it have to get the land up front. And those who eventually have the land, let's just say you have all the lots of land in the country. Now the only way that other people will be able to have it is through, working for it, or through doing business and accepting that as the payment, right? And so that's the system, and that system is really good, because now you can ensure that there is not any randomized creation of that currency to drop its value. The value of cryptocurrency is moved by demand and supply. So why say that? Now let me get into some more layman things that you can understand, because this was the more technical and possibly boring part of the podcast, right? But in 2008, when Bitcoin came about, the first cryptocurrency, right now there are over 600 current cryptocurrencies on the public exchange, by the way. All right, you can go to coinmarketcap.com. Coinmarketcap.com, and you will list the whole list of cryptocurrencies. It is advised to pay attention to the top 5 currencies in the world, and you can get started. But basically in 2008, when this thing came out, it came out at a value of 10 cents for just one whole coin. Now this is digital, don't think physical, but if you have to think of it as a physical coin, you can do so. But basically for one, it was 10 cents. Eventually, based on the information that has been going out, the ability, as I said before, to make the unbanked banked, to have a system whereby you don't have to have a set of fees to pay just to send the money around to other people. These things intrigued millions of people around the world, and so people began investing. People began 10 cents for one. How much would you buy if it was 10 cents for one still today? I'm getting to how much it is, but how much would you have really invested if it was still 10 cents? A significant amount, right? You might have spent a whole $10 in it, and you have that cryptocurrency. Now people did that, right? We had young people in the United States who spend $10 on the cryptocurrency, because there will always be first movers to opportunities, always, right? There are always a subsection of people who are willing to try something first, even though people may be afraid of it because it's new, right? It hasn't been done, right? People would still, what's $10? You throw $10 behind it, you get enough Bitcoin, and you have that there and you forget it. And that, my friends, turned people into millionaires. Because as I said before, demand is what raises the value of it. And so as the word and the information and the education began to spread, the value of this thing went up. Now, might I remind some, right, just for those who have Bitcoin in our possession, and you feel that excitement all over again, you have to remember 2017, where the value of that coin was at $20,000 for one. So imagine you having this Bitcoin since it was 10 cents, and then it spiked up based on demand to $20,000. That turned people into millionaires. And for people who bought more upfront, of course that made people billionaires as well. People were able to leave their jobs, retire their family, because they would have invested in something that's an asset. It's actually an asset. We even had the US Bank, where the place where it was started, you even have the US Bank declaring it as official currency. So it's not monopoly money, even though I use the example of money that you earn in a game. It's not monopoly money at all. It is an official currency. If you go on many websites, you can pay for goods and services with Bitcoin internationally. Of course, we still have to get the ball going in Trinidad and Tobago, having more merchants accept, cryptocurrency. As a matter of fact, I will accept cryptocurrency. I offer, business coaching, or, if you want to have that opportunity call or so on, and just flesh out things about your own business that you may be thinking of starting and so on. I offer that via my website. And yes, it's listed there as fiat, TT dollars. The price is listed in TT. But if you reach out to me and you decide, I have some Bitcoin and I want to give you the equivalent of that fee in Bitcoin, I will gladly take it, because I understand that based on the analysts, right, Bitcoin is expected to go even higher than that. Now, yes, some people might be saying, yes, but Bitcoin goes up, but it also goes back down, right? Now, this is the way currency is supposed to run. Even the fiat currency, only in Trinidad and Tobago, we observe a currency standing up firmly at the exchange rate, right? But in the real world, that currency price moves. Those who trade for themselves and so on, or into trading, will know what I'm speaking about. So that currency value usually moves. It doesn't move drastically, but it moves, right? And so that's where you get your pips, and that's where people get their money from, the trading world, right? But we're not talking trading today, talking cryptocurrency. And so, the value goes up and down. However, over time, it's still projected to be going upward. So it may dip and go up, dip and go up, dip and go up, but the general trend is an upward trend, or what they will call a bullish trend with the currency. It's going up, right? And so what happened in this year, 2020, is something that the currency has called halving. And all you need to know about halving is where they cut the amount of coins in circulation, thereby producing a demand for it. And when that demand comes out for it, the price goes up. Now, every time in previous times, right, after it would have gone up from 2008 to 2012, I believe would have been the other time, that would have the halving. Every time there's a halving so far, the price beat the former high price at some point in time, either within that year or probably even in the following year of the halving, right? And so in 2020, the halving was in May. Now remember, I just told you in 2017, the currency it spiked. After the halving, it went to $20,000 for one. So this year was the halving, and so we have a lot of people who are predicting, financial analysts across the world, predicting that this thing is going to pass that $20,000 price. We have top business names, the business leaders, predicting that this currency can be $50,000 to one, it can be $100,000 to one, and so on, right? And so that may occur. But one thing I want you to understand, what we can actually see and materialize, is that right now, remember I told you it started at 10 cents. And right now, right, I haven't been able to check for this morning, but up to yesterday when I checked on the price of Bitcoin, it was still standing at 11,600 US dollars for one. So still, if you got in on this game at 10 cents for one, and you had 100 coins, you're well into your millions, right? By now, if you even started at $100 when the Bitcoin was 100 US dollars for one, and you had some in your possession, you have a good bit of money now through appreciation, right? And so let me not deter you into thinking that now it's too late because it's 11,600 US dollars for one, you can't get in, it's too late. No. Just like a dollar can be denominated, a whole Bitcoin can be separated into fractions, which they call Satoshis, right? And the Satoshis, you can buy fractions. So it's $11,000 now. You can go in and buy as little as $10 US worth of Bitcoin. Now it would only be a fraction, 0.0 whatever would be the fraction that you have. But you can still get in, and that fraction, once the overall price goes up, the fraction will also go up in value. So you may buy $10 worth of Bitcoin now, but then the price goes up next week or tomorrow, because it moves often. You don't know, the market goes in when they want, and the market would decide the price, and movement happens in currencies every day. And so that $10 worth of Bitcoin may raise to $15. It may raise to $20. Yes, it may dip back to 18, but it will be generally going on an uptrend, as I indicated, how the currency moves. So right away, I want you to start to imagine that. I want you to start to picture that you can have this Bitcoin and have it act as if it is real estate. I actually compare it to, some people actually say that it's even better than real estate because, yes, if you buy a piece of land now, it's worth something, but then you have to wait some years and probably some developments in the area for you to be able to get, way more than what you spent for it, right? So that takes a little while. But with cryptocurrency, that value can change overnight. And then you can easily decide to liquidate. There are many online exchanges whereby you can sell back Bitcoin back to US, and so you just keep making the profits to live. If you're in a place where it doesn't accept the Bitcoin, of course you can liquidate the Bitcoin back to US, have the US sent here to your bank account, and you can live off of that. There are people living off of it. There have been people who have changed their retirement plan from the typical insurance companies and so on to depending on cryptocurrency. Now it is a risk, but we have people making those decisions. And so I want to encourage you to get some cryptocurrency. Look into Bitcoin. Look into Ethereum. That's the second largest. Look into Ripple. XRP is the code for it on the exchange. Again, that site is coinmarketcap.com. That's just one of the sites. You can even go to coinbase.com and you can see the value and even the charts of the trend of how the currency went over the past week, over the past 5 minutes, 10 minutes. You can view all of this and really understand and appreciate that, the currency is expected to move. Let's just imagine the currency really does hit $50,000 for one. Even though it's $11,000 now, if you can afford a whole one and you have one and it goes to 50, do the math, you would have made a good bit of money on the appreciation of that digital asset that you own. So I really implore you to look into it. Yes, unfortunately our laws haven't been amended just yet to accept or to allow our nationals to use our usual cards and purchase Bitcoins. We have been getting problems with that. However, there are ways in which you can acquire the Bitcoin, because the coin itself, possession of the coin is not a problem. The problem is the purchasing. The banks have been told to be I have heard that the banks have locked off certain cards from locals from buying it in Trinidad and Tobago. But of course, you can utilize PayPal options. You may have friends and family in other places of the world, and you can find a way to get money to them via the different exchanges, right? And they can buy some cryptocurrency for you, and so they have their Bitcoin wallet, and you have your Bitcoin wallet, and you can be transferring that funds, and just as a bank account, you're starting to save. So you have to look at it as an asset, because when I would say it becomes of even greater value in the future, the people that would have made that investment today would be the ones smiling. Just like the people who would have thrown 10 cents behind it back in 2008 when it just came out, they are the ones right now who are smiling. Cryptocurrency and Bitcoin made them rich. Now, the other currencies are good as well. You have to read up what's the aim behind the currency. Why was it created? Why do they think it's rivaling, or it can rival Bitcoin, which is the number one? And some people even invest in those. They buy Ethereum, they buy Ripple, and they hold it because the value of these coins go up as well. And so there are still many coins within the top 5 that are still under $200 for a whole one. And so you can decide to invest there for the long term with these currencies. So that was just something else you can look into, in terms of thinking of building your portfolio out. Right, having multiple streams of income, or having diverse assets, diversify your assets, right? And so you need to be looking into your digital assets now, because as we see what the pandemic has done to the world, it has disrupted many traditional and local physical businesses. So you really need to be thinking about your digital assets. There's no coronavirus in cyberspace, right? That's a physical thing. So that was my quick bit of information for you today, the podcast for this week. I hope that you enjoy. Be sure to subscribe, to favorite according to where you're listening from, and share it if you have the option to share the podcast with somebody who may need to hear about this Bitcoin for the first time. I don't take it for granted that anybody knows anything of anything I speak about, and so that's why sometimes the information may come across quite plain, and then sometimes we might take it up a notch with a little bit of technical information for those who are well aware, right? So thank you for listening once again. See you next week where we get into the next topic.